Right, um, so let me share my screen so I can share all screen. So I hope you can see my screen as well. So now I hope you can see my screen. I'm not going to take too much time. I want to introduce the components that I mentioned. So we discuss a package diagram, we discuss a component diagram, and we discuss deployment diagram. So I've seen that most of the people are very excited about those diagrams because many people do not talk about those diagrams, even though they are very, very important. So in summary, when we talk about the package diagram, basically what you need to understand the organization of your code, organization of your program in terms of codes. So maybe we go straight. I have shared you the links with a lot of theories for you to read, but of course I'm trying to explain. But let's go to the point first. So let's start with package diagram first. Okay, package diagram. We give it any name. That's fine. So now let's think of this scenario because I've been telling you that. Hello. So is there some question? So if no question, that's fine. Let's continue. So I've been telling you that when you write your program, in most cases, you need to find a way to organize your program source code. So by doing so, when you organize your program, you can make sure that through those diagrams, people can be able to understand what you have in your program. So now, as I was saying, if you look at the concept of package diagram, so let's imagine that you're writing application, and when you talk about application in terms of UML notation, application is like a component. So we come back to the component, but the concept of packages. Imagine now if you have your source code and you have created something like a controllers, because most of you should be aware of MVC pattern, for example. So where you organize your code into things like controllers, things like models, and so maybe this is yeah, it doesn't matter. You can give it like this one. You have a controllers, you have a models, and you have data access layer. How do you call it? Maybe you can call it DAO, something like that. So feel free to jump in, guys, because I'm hoping you understand what you mean by organization of source code. Like I'm saying here. So you have a data access layer. That's what you call DAO, data access object, or you can say data access layer if you want. So these are the file, I mean, these are the folders. So that's what you call packages, by the way. These are the folders where you have where you put your programs, depending on the purpose of each program you write. Maybe you can have also configuration file, and this is maybe where you put things like connection to the database. In most cases, we also find people with like property files. Okay, so how do you call it? Maybe they can be part of configuration. You don't need a lot of packages. So the people who are very familiar with MVC, for example. So if you are familiar with MVC, you know how you write your program, and this is data access layer, and the data access layer depends on the entities. That's what you put in the models. This package can contain things like a Pojo classes, simple classes with just the structure of the entity. If it is a student, what are attributes, the relationship with some other stuff. So in any case, the DAO will depend on the models. You can do the dependency. So to be able to access data, I'm fetching data about your students. So what I'm getting about your students, so I get the entity structure from models. So this is maybe dependency. And also, in some cases, controllers will access data access layer to fetch the data, and probably show the data in views. We can have another package for views, for example. So this is maybe HTML or GSP pages. So eventually, the files in this package, this is what okay, this is simply to render the data in the browser. That's why you call them view. So they can be, because you can add some notes as well. So the data here can be either HTML files, maybe if you're using things like a Spring Boot, can be GSP files if you're using GSP for pages. If you're not in a Java, probably you're in a PHP or whatever. So you understand what you mean. This can be in this folder. What you can have, it's anything which helps you to display the data in the browser. And here, if you like user access login page, you provide username, password. So the view will make a call to the controller. View will make a call to the controller, things like this. So you can use a simple relationship. Access, I don't know, I think access makes more sense. So the view will access the controller. And what will the controller do? Controller will check the data. If it is your username and the password, the controller will check from data access layer, because this one is connected to the database. So if your username and the password, whatever the logic implemented in the controller, then the controller may take you to another view, another page. So in some cases, controllers can access both DAO and models. And in some cases, between the controllers and the DAO, people will introduce what we call service layer. Not many people will have this layer, but many people will have it. So what is the purpose of service layer? So I will try to explain, even though the main concept here is to explain the concept of package diagram, but also I can help you understand what you mean by this stuff. So for example, if I have an entity called a student, let's write it here. And the student has things like ID number, first name, last name, DOB, maybe address, telephone number. Please try to mute because come on, come on, come on. So now, this is the data that you can access from a student: ID, first name, last name, DOB address, telephone. So simply what your DAO can do, your DAO can perform what you call CRUD operations. So basically what I mean here, CRUD operations, I think you know what we mean. You can create a new student, you can delete a student, you can update student, and also you can read. Read means what? You can, yeah, it's read by the way, because that's why we call it CRUD operation. So this is what your DAO can do. So what does it mean? If you need to insert new data in your in a student table, if you assume this is a table, if you want to insert new data in a student table, so the controller will take this input from user view and send this to DAO, and inside the DAO folder there is a class to insert a new student in your database. And to do so, it needs to remember the structure of your student database, student table. That's why it has to access models or entities. Some people will call this one also entities. So we check the structure of entity class from models, and then perform insert operation into a student database. The same if you are updating, or the same if you are reading. You can fetch data, but you need to know how to map this data before it renders this data to controllers. So eventually the communication between here and here, it's a kind of bidirectional communication, because controllers will send something to the DAO and the DAO will send something back to the controller. So now I was talking about the service layer. So if you want, sometimes you can add a service layer because you do not want a controller to access DAO directly, because apart from those simple basic operations, you may need some other sophisticated operations which requires also some logic for implementation. For example, you are looking at maybe searching for students, you need to give it some specific criteria. So this logic cannot be easily implemented in a DAO or in a controller. So that's why people will put another layer inside, which is known as a service. So whatever you have here, you can implement more details in the service layer, and then the controller will talk to service layer. And so if it's like this one, then we need to put another one back, because as I said, you understand it's two-fold communication. So something like this one, and then your service layer will talk to the DAO to get some data or to send some data. And again, if you are fetching like a data, for example, DAO also will send something back to the service. So the communication between the packages goes like this one. So if you understand now the concept of MVC, you understand what I mean. We don't need these notes. They are here just for you to understand. This is our data object. So whatever the data, the DAO will send this data to the class or table in your database. But those ones are not a part of package diagram. So these are what you call packages. So this is what matters. Maybe I want to put them in different colors. Yeah, can you go to something like this for demonstration purpose? So those are the packages. Other stuff I'm adding just information. So what do you have in the configuration file? So in the case of Java application, for example, maybe your application need to send email. So if you need to send email, you need some class here which specifies the sender email ID, sender password, all those stuff we consider as a configuration. So maybe you need to tell your DAO class how to find database, the connection string, whatever. All those stuff you can put them here in a configuration file. I mean in configuration package. So maybe your application is going to be like you know the concept of internationalization in programming. You need to make it like your application international. What does it mean? Internationalization or localization. So if I'm from a French speaking country, I get the application in French. If I'm from an English speaking country, I access the application in English. You understand those kind of stuff. So here you can create like all possible labels. Labels, I mean the words you use in your application. So login. This is login in French. That's one file. You have another login. Okay, you have like a property files in English and in French and in Swahili probably. So if I have a login in one file in English, I need to have a login in another file in English. How do you call login? Login means it's se connecter, je pense. So you have to have this kind of translations through the files, and you configure your application, of course, depending on the location, to know which file to use. This guy wants to use English. Okay, I'll go for properties English. This guy wants to use application in Kinyarwanda. I will call properties underscore probably Kinyarwanda. So you can make your application multilingual, so you can run it in different languages. So which layer can access this this package? Mainly the controller and view. So probably you may have it here to make sure that you don't have a lot of lines between. Okay, so I'm trying to make it fit. So okay, maybe in any case. So the view, the controllers, because this is mainly where you have your logic. The controller can fetch some data from there. I think should be the other way around. It's one way direction, should not be two ways. Because this file is like a static. There's nothing to do by simply calling it either from your controller or from your views. So you can call it from there or you can call it from here. All right, so then you can beautify. I use this keyword beautify. I think it does exist. Beauty. You can beautify. You can beautify your diagram. You know how to make it look good. You can format connectors. You can format the fonts. All of those stuff. So the point is those logical grouping of your files in your program in the form of packages that will lead you to make like a package diagram. This is the package diagram. So some question. I had someone with some question. If I'm not mistaken. Any questions so far? So 1 minute. If no question, then we continue.
No question, sir.
So is the logic understandable? Because you will refer to the link I shared. What I'm doing here, I'm just explaining what we mean by package diagram and how you make it. Because, for example, you cannot make a package diagram if you don't know how the source code are organized. Okay? So I may probably open one of the application that I have, probably, and let you know that in any case, when you write your program, you will need to be in a position to organize your files in packages, and if you do so, to help other people to understand your program, the package diagram will be very crucial. So all right, the next, which is also very simple, it's a component diagram. So By the way, can anybody tell me what do you understand by component diagram? Feel free. Whatever you feel, just feel free to tell me. What do you understand by package diagram?
Recording.
So anyone? So now, let me show you, for example, this is an example for so many applications here, and if you look at the packages, so look, for example, in this application, anything to do like a controller, I have a specific program for controller, so it should know which view to call, which HTML page to call. Should know, okay, this is the data and this is HTML file name. Should know which object to pass, mainly for the data. So the focus is just logical organization of source code. So you can see we have something called the controller here. So what do we put in the controller? So any interaction between my view, my HTML pages, which are probably which are here, anything to do with my HTML pages, so it's being called by controller. And you have data access layer. If you do anything with data manipulation, there is no code here because we used just what you call interfaces, repository. Oh, good enough. Here we have written some code. So we are using the Java database connectivity template. And from here you can get some data, you can map the data. So to be able to map this data, we use the entity type. That's why you see product here. So the product here, it's an entity inside the model here. So it gives you the structure of your product with name, brand, made in, price, whatever. And if you want to see, you can see what you do with the service layer. Can be additional layer, but it's mainly if there's no further logic, you simply call the method from DAO, that is data access layer. So if you look at maybe a product repository, you will find a method known as list. So here we are just calling that method because we did declare that class as well, and we can call its method. But if you have a more logic to implement, like passing parameters, checking conditions, you can make them here before you make a call to your DAO. That's why we said in most cases the controller will call the DAO itself. But in this case we are preferring to go through the service. Just wanted to give you some idea because we talk about these things in theory and you may think maybe they're not applicable, but they are very important to understand. So this is another example. You can see so many packages, some DAO, controllers, services, even the service and the service implementation. In this case, you make sure that you have like interfaces, and once you have your interfaces, interfaces means what? Those methods are not implemented, and you implement those methods from the service implementation layer. So this is where you put the implementation of each method. So I'm doing this to give you idea of what we mean by package diagram and why is it important. So you need to make sure that once you have your program, you need to understand how the codes are very organized using the concept of packages. So now let's go to the component. When you talk about the component diagram, so mainly component means what? The component here, we refer a component as some executable application. Executable application. This is what we mean by a component. So we create a component diagram. Let's open and see the properties of any component diagram. So if you look at the component diagram, the elements you have, we have got a component and interface. Component is like a system. So let's say I have in my system called So your system is known as a vaccination MIS, right? Vaccination MIS. I don't know the name, but let's assume. So we call it a component because it can learn, it's safe, it can work, it's safe. If you take something like let's say uh, like what? Because in general, a component is like a system, it's safe. But someone can implement a system in a different ways. I may make a component like authentication, make sure that people can register, people can log in and log out. I make it as a component. All right? Because some people will implement the systems through the use of what we call service-oriented architecture. So what does it mean? Service-oriented architecture. Service-oriented architecture. So you make everything as a service and you make sure that there is integration in between those components. So then here maybe I will say this is authentication. So what does it do? So one can implement the complete component of user registration, loan management, login and logout, and have it as a separate application that you can deploy. You can deploy for people to use. So if you go that way and you have your system, maybe you don't need to have authentication in your system. Why? What's happened? So this authentication component will expose what we call API, which is interface. So something like you can say this is API, because this is the only way the applications can talk. And depending on the tool, there will be different notations for interface between the two systems. Interface here means this system is talking to another system. So this system, we need to expose what you call the API. So you indicate it like this one. So this component is exposing something. Maybe I need to delete this one. So in UML notation, this means I'm exposing interface. So that is like an API whereby you pass like a ID, password, and this vaccination MIS will consume this API. So you show this one. I need the relationship. You show this one by showing that there is interface between the packages. This is the perfect notation. So anyway you see this notation means what? There is integration between these two systems. Authentication is like independent module that you can deploy on itself. And vaccination MIS, it's another complete system without authentication. These guys, they don't care about login, logout, user registration. They're just busy with business logic of vaccination. Who is vaccinated, when, blah, blah. But being authenticated or not, it's taken care by another component, which is known as the authentication component. So let's take another simple scenario. Maybe you need to send things like email notification. And when you send email notification, mainly, maybe you're using Gmail. So you are calling a Gmail component here. So good enough, you understand. You are not the one to develop Gmail, but through the API of Gmail, all right, you can go from internet how to send email in Gmail. So maybe you can do right away. We can see how to send email in Gmail, maybe, and you need to know which language, how to send email in Gmail with let's say this is a Java or PHP. Let's go for PHP. So if you look at any sample code you can get to send the email, you simply make a call like you see here. I think my screen is small, but you should be able to see. Let's try to see if I can zoom. I'm trying to find a way to... Oh my god, so... So that's fine. So it's small, but I think you can see. I wanted to. Okay, for here I can zoom. That's fine since I have this capability in the browser. So if you look at this piece of code here, yes, you simply write this stuff, and email is sent, right? But you don't care. What about mail? So there's what you call API. So this is like an API to send email. You simply need to uh, we simply we simply need to put the destination. We need to put the subject and the message. And when you run application, the email will be sent to this guy. So in a more sophisticated way, you will find also more details. You can customize it. That's fine. Whatever you have here, this is a message composition. And once you have given the property like a subject, the body, whatever addresses from reply to, so you simply make this call. You make a call to this method or this function. Okay, we call it a function since it is PHP. So if you go to Java, for example, how to send image, email in Java. So you will see the same. So the point here is you are not the one who is implementing the functionality to send email. You are making a call to the component which can send the email. So that's why also you can say the Gmail has exposed the API. They have this API. So that is interface. You can see
Joe.
down there it's interface. And
Mm.
what your program can do, what your program can do, uh, sorry, this is tricky, but you need to make it.
Chatting with her.
So please try to mute your mic. Okay, I can even remove this one. So if you look at here, and this one is going to consume. So let me find out who is disturbing us. Yeah, I can see Mansi, are you disturbing us? William, you are disturbing us. Who else? So guys, you should have put your Leo names or ID because Bonnet is taking attendance. So now your system will consume this API. So you indicate this one like this one. Okay, I needed to bring this is the interface. Then yeah, you consume the API, something like this. So if you see any diagram like this one, this means the component diagram. You show different components in your system and you show the integration or interface between those components. So if you have a very big application, you will find this. Maybe authentication also is using this component because maybe when you create account you receive an email. So we are not implementing the capability to send email. We are simply consuming the API for you to be able to receive the email. So I hope you understand what we mean by component diagram. So by looking at the link I shared, there are so many more details for you to understand. So those diagrams, many people are not very concerned about them because you think of requirements, use case diagrams, things like that, but nobody is paying attention. You can change your ID in the Zoom itself because uh, we may not be able to remember to check from chatting room. So I was saying these components are very important, even though many people will not implement, I mean, will not do them. But if you go to the Leo project, definitely a complete project should have all those details. Because if I look at the source code, I need to understand that we are not implementing authentication module. It is somewhere else. But there are some APIs. So we use the APIs to allow people to be authenticated. Yeah, we are sending emails, but we are not implementing capability to send email from scratch. So therefore, we make sure that our components can use the available APIs to send email for Gmail, and we just write like one line or two lines to make sure that we can send email. So I think this is what we can say about the components diagram. Again, this one can be done by people who really did deep understanding of the source code, right? So the level of analysis, it's good to understand the requirements, blah blah, documenting them, but even understanding the logic in the system, how codes are organized, is very important. So you can still go ahead and make those kind of diagrams. So more you can refer to the file that I've shared in our WhatsApp group. All right, so let's also introduce deployment diagram. So people were saying, yes, we've been waiting for this, but you can see also from what I shared, it's good component to understand. Deployment, yeah, it's a good component to understand, but mainly, what does it show? So the system is developed, and the system has to be deployed. You need to take the system out of your personal computer and put it somewhere on the server for people to use it. That's the meaning of deployment. So many ways to deploy. People can, you can have like one server where you put a database and you put even the application. If you run your application in Tomcat, for example, you install Tomcat, you install DBMS. So some people can do that, but other people can have like a separation. You have a dedicated server for database, a dedicated server for data for application. So it all depends. So the basic important stuff is to have the node, and if you look at the node in terms of deployment, node looks like a server, by the way. So let's say DBMS server, database server. So you aim at having database installed here, and database itself is what? It's a component. It's a component. So you can do this. For example, this is indicated that you have like something like a MySQL installed here. So now you understand what we mean by component. Because when you install MySQL, it's an application. You can run it separately regardless of your application. And then, if you're not mixing everything, you might have another server where you basically put your application. So this is the server to host your application. So this is server, let's say this is the vaccination MIS server, application server. So we say application server because if it is application server, this is where you need to install things like Tomcat, which version, I don't know. You need to install a Tomcat, for example, version 9. Probably you want to deploy your application in the Tomcat. And you need also Java installed in this server, because you'll be deploying Java files, whatever. So which version of Java? Maybe we are talking about Java 9. So let's make it simple like this. So these are the components installed in this server, and of course this server will access DBMS server. So you need to show the linkage between, the relationship between the two. So it's not interface. Let's find the appropriate relationship. No, this is not. So by the way, which one? I think you have a Tomcat, you have a Java. Let's find the possible relationship between those nodes. So the nodes are not communicating, but the components inside the nodes will be communicating. So you need, for your Java application to run, you need to have instance of Tomcat installed. You need to have a Java version 9 installed. You need to have a MySQL database installed in a database server. And so the basic relationship you can use. Uh, for your application, this is the whole application. By the way, we did not put also the other component, because apart from this one, you need your files. You need to deploy your files. So some people will call this one artifact. Artifact means also piece of software. You can look at the details. Physical piece of information used or produced by software development process. So that's fine. If you cannot do that, maybe you think your application also is what is the name of your application then, because these are the supporting tools, and you have installed your application here. So you have deployed the things like WAR file or JAR file, I don't know. So this is this one to learn. It depends on these two. So you can have like a dependency. What is a dependency? Yes, you can have like a dependency. It depends on this one. But also this one, this is the Leo application. It's going to access your database, which is stored in another server. So you can do usage. Yeah, uses. You can do that, or you can simply use association. It's associated. So it uses the database, the MySQL database, which is stored here. So either way you can do. So what is the main purpose of this diagram? You are showing the nodes, the servers. Okay, you are showing the servers needed for your system to work. So maybe if you want to protect your application, yes, maybe you will say for any user to be able to access my application, I'm going to have a firewall, for example, in the middle. This is for security purpose. So you don't want any user to go straight to your application. You want your user to go through the firewall, and from a firewall they can access the application. So let's try to make this relationship. Okay, so we need to connect this. Doesn't matter. So you access the application from a firewall, and if you want, you can go far and make sure if there is a user. But how can we add the new components here? I need to bring like a user icon. So if this is a user, every user has to go through the firewall, then access the application, and then the application we call the database. We use the simple relationship like a usage, but we understand what we mean. So if you have like so many other things that you can install, by the way, everything here can be considered as the whole deployment. So you can have like another box outside this one. So let me know if you understand the purpose of this type of diagram.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I didn't understand the firewall you added after. What's its use?
Come again, please.
I didn't understand why you used the firewalls to connect it to the vaccination MS apps.
I need to see who is asking first, because it's very important. It's participation. So who is asking first?
Samantha.
Okay, Samantha. But William again unmuted. Okay. Joshua, can you answer the question? If you don't know the answer, you can say, I don't know the answer, sir, because you may not know or you may know. So who can answer Samantha's question?
Sorry, sir. You have said that we need firewall for the sake of protection of our application. That's why we need to use the firewall.
That's exactly. So I think Samantha, yeah, if you are not yet a professional into these things, you cannot understand. But people who deal with security, you may allow everyone to, let's say there is a user here. So how can I make user? So let me open Epic Pen if it is available. So you imagine you have you want to restrict something. All right. So maybe Samantha, you need to check more to understand the purpose of firewall. What can firewall do? So in the firewall, you can block some people, you can allow some people. That's why we said you may want to force all users rather than accessing your system straight. You do not want this to happen. So you want them to go through the firewall, and depending on the configuration of your firewall, you can allow these people to access your system or not. So everything is protected. You don't want people to access them directly. So you make sure that they go through the firewall. So firewall can do a lot of things, including filtering. You know, if you have like a people in AUKA accessing YouTube for some content that AUKA does not want you guys to access, they can include the firewall to protect their network. So you should not be able. They can filter the link, which page you can access, which one you cannot access. So filtering security is another thing. All right. So this is mainly for security of the application, right? So you want everyone to access your system through the firewall. You understand what you mean? It's like a block. You have like a gate between the user and your application. So whoever wants to access your application needs to pass it through the gate. If the gate says okay, then they will be able to access your application. So Samantha, am I answering your question or not?
Yes, now I understand.
Yeah, you can check more on the usage of a firewall. So basically, those advanced diagrams, the people who work in real projects, the people who go deep in the project, they understand, they can use them. But at your level, it might sound new, which is good. But what I'm putting in you is just to be aware that those things exist. And if you aim to be like a good analyst or architect, you need to dig deep into those components. So I think we can continue with those links I shared because they have enough details. Should you have some questions, feel free to let us know. So I wanted to stop my simple theories here, and maybe we discuss on your assignment the progress, and I want Bonelli to lead this. So I may pick some groups and ask the groups to show what they have done so far, because I know you guys, when you talk about it's just learning from home, people will think we are not taking this as serious. You need to take this as serious, because you remember, beyond August, I may not be able to come again and teach. So, you know, I'm a student as well. I somehow have to get busy with my stuff. So we are trying all we can so that we can finish the content. And if we get any opportunity to meet again, that will be for the quizzes, exams, mid-sem, whatever. So take this as serious and try to read more. If you have the issue, you can ask. That's fine. So for the session, maybe we can this one we can end the session because 45 minutes. Let me check. It was supposed to be 45 minutes.
The meeting is unlimited.
Oh, it's unlimited. Good. But I needed to stop this one because it's a record, and if you make a big record, it's very tricky. So we no longer record. Okay, so I clicked to stop sharing. I needed to stop recording because this one will make it crash. Oh my God. The meeting is not responding. So I think we needed to wait because I need to be sure that my record is not so Bonel, please can you so I think we are done for today, so let's focus on our project.
Question.
Yeah.
Are we going to use that one in our project, or to just?
So why not using them? Because if you use them, you get a better understanding. I think the purpose of the project is to help you to understand as much as you can in terms of those concepts.
Okay, fine.
So I can say I have a 2 instance of Zoom. I don't know what happens if I click end. I do not want to lose my record. So in any case, I'm going to try it. If I lose my record, then we'll take it. So I think we'll come again with another link, and be prepared for guys to present your progress for the project. Just we need to see the progress. So to me, it seems like my Zoom is not even responding. This is very strange. I don't know. Performance-wise, it's really. Let's